Yankee.
Powerful Nerdcast assembled!
Stay dandy, baby. People are definitely going to have opinions about this episode of Dragon Ball Daima, and I am one of those people. It's very obvious at this point that Dragon Ball Daima was meant to be a remake/reboot of Dragon Ball GT. Akira Toriyama, the legend himself, has made it very clear in the past that while he wasn't heavily involved in the story aspects of Dragon Ball GT, there were a lot of elements about that series that he really loved. In particular, Goku transforming into a child. This allowed Akira to sort of channel that adventurous spirit that was so prevalent in the original Dragon Ball series. Another contentious aspect of Dragon Ball GT has been the character design and the transformations utilized by the main characters of the series. And that brings us to the latest episode of Dragon Ball Daima, where Super Saiyan 4 is officially made canon. I've talked about this a few times in the past. I'm not the biggest fan of Dragon Ball GT, but even I'll admit that the Super Saiyan 4 form actually does look pretty freaking awesome, and I love the way that it's actually utilized in the latest episode of Dragon Ball Daima. It's not a one-to-one exact recreation of that form. There are some pretty distinctive differences, like the fact that Goku has red hair or the fact that he's got these big ol' Popeye arms, but this is basically the Super Saiyan 4 form that you all remember. Red fur, yellow pants, long tail, it's all here and accounted for. However, the means about which Goku utilizes this transformation is wholly unique to Dragon Ball Daima. First, before I even talk about these transformations or anything, I gotta talk about Gomah for a second. This guy is just so stupid powerful. It's actually kind of funny. I mean, the fact of the matter is, this guy at this point very well might be more powerful than Majin Buu or Kid Buu, and it's all thanks to that ridiculous magic MacGuffin, the Third Eye. It has somehow transformed this guy into one of the most powerful villains in all of Dragon Ball. And I also like the fact that he's been going through some changes in these episodes as well, like the fact that before, he was a little guy. Then he got really big. By the end of this episode, he is absolutely kaiju-sized. This is kind of perfect for a character like him, as he seemed to have sort of like a Napoleon complex, and now he's sort of showing off his brand new power by quite literally transforming into a Godzilla-sized version of himself. It's hilarious and it's fitting for a villain who is essentially Emperor Pilaf on steroids. I also really like the fact that half of this episode was dedicated to seeing Goku utilize his Super Saiyan 3 form, not to mention him teaming up with Majin Buu, who somehow also is inspired by Goku to pretty much become a Super Saiyan himself. That was an unexpected surprise, and it led to one of the best scenes of the episode of watching these characters team up and trying to stop Gomah. But even with this power, they just cannot seem to take this guy down, and Goku is seemingly defeated. That is until he's met by Neva, who utilizes his magical Namekian abilities to basically awaken Goku's Super Saiyan form. And that's what makes this episode so interesting to me. The fact that they were able to bring Super Saiyan 4 into the canon in this way. And it actually all does kind of make sense. This wouldn't be the first time that we've seen a mystical Namekian have the ability to awaken someone's powers. And here, the fact that it's so deeply connected to the demon realm also makes a lot of sense, as Super Saiyan 4 is so different looking than the other Super Saiyan forms we've seen in the past. I've always said that one of my biggest issues with Super Saiyan 4 is simply the fact that it is called Super Saiyan 4. It didn't really feel like a natural evolution of the abilities that we saw. I mean, they're kind of ditching the whole golden-haired color scheme and going for something different, a more primal form of Super Saiyan, and I kind of wish they would actually give it a different name entirely. It is worth mentioning they don't outright say Super Saiyan 4 out loud in this episode, so maybe they are going to end up calling it something different. But the fact of the matter is, I love this development. It's really cool, and it also sort of helps explain away the fact that why didn't Goku even use Super Saiyan 4 during Dragon Ball Super? Well, it seems like this form is directly connected to Neva's power. But seeing Goku go through this transformation and pop off against Gomah was just really satisfying to see, featuring some of the most intense action that we've seen from Daima thus far, not to mention one of the coolest Kamehameha blasts that I have ever seen. I'm not sure if this actually happened in the original Dragon Ball GT, but when Goku utilizes a Kamehameha in this episode, he infuses it with the power of fire, and it's a really great visual, especially when it takes down Gomah, sending him deeply directly into the very core of the arena that he created. But suddenly he crawls out of this thing, transforming into a massive monster version of himself, and completely overpowers Goku in his form. Despite the fact that Super Saiyan 4 is here, it doesn't really work at all. I mean, let's face it, guys. We're going to see some sort of fusion at some point, and it very well could involve Super Saiyan 4 Goku and maybe even Vegeta. But there could be another twist here, and I can't wait to see how that's going to play out. It's mostly because I think the most interesting development of this episode actually doesn't come from Goku, but from Glorio, who is called upon by Dr. Rinsu to utilize the Dragon Ball so that she can make her wish to become Supreme Demon King. And weirdly enough, Glorio seems to know ancient Namekian and is able to summon the Dragon of the Demon Realm, which I have to admit, this is the one part of the episode I'm a little disappointed in. I was really hoping we'd get, like, a unique form of dragon for the Demon Realm, but basically it's just a red Purunga. And again, it does make sense. Neva himself is an ancient Namekian. He has a lot in common with the ones that we saw from the Namek saga, so it makes sense that he would create a dragon that looks like Purunga, but it's basically just a bigger red version of him. In fact, it also seems to be like a thinly veiled reference to Ultimate Shenron from Dragon Ball GT. Again, just driving home the fact that this is kind of a reboot of that entire series. What I do love about this Purunga, however, is that not only is he really cool looking, but he also happens to be really powerful. I mean, Gomah actually tries to attack him to stop his wish from happening, and Purunga literally just flicks his big ass away, and that's really awesome to see. Because in the past, we've had instances where the dragons themselves are very subservient, and sometimes they even get outright killed, like when King Piccolo killed the original Shenron. But this one? This one is really powerful. I always felt that the dragons in the Dragon Ball series should be powerful. I mean, just the fact that they're able to make these ridiculous wishes should show that there's something that you don't necessarily want to mess with. But the episode actually ends on a nice cliffhanger of Glorio utilizing a wish, and we don't get to see what it's gonna be. It could be him literally wishing for Goku and all of his friends to be adults. It could be another twist for the series, as we don't know the true motivations for why Glorio is even working with Rinsu in the first place. There could be some sort of awesome twist in the next episode, and I don't know where it's going to go. The preview gives us absolutely nothing on what could potentially happen, but I have a feeling it is going to be Goku and his friends becoming adults again. They have a little montage sequence of Glorio reflecting on his adventures with Goku right before the wish is actually said, so I think it's going to go in that direction, and I really do kind of hope this is what it's going to be, because I love the Super Saiyan 4 look in this episode, but man, it would look a lot more badass if they were actually adults when they were using them. Overall, I'm kind of in the middle on this episode. I don't love it, I don't hate it, and a lot of that is mostly owed to the fact that I wanted something a little more unique for Dragon Ball Daima at the end of the day. But I know that Dragon Ball GT fans are just going to be over the hill for this episode. They're going to be so excited to finally see Super Saiyan 4 again and to make it officially canon. And for those fans, I'm very happy for you. Again, though, I just kind of wanted something a little more unique from the series to separate it from the other different Dragon Ball spin-offs and sequels that we've already seen. That being said, I can't deny the fact that this episode does look really awesome and the battle scenes are really great to look at. It's definitely the best thing about this episode right here. So, yeah, I really liked this episode. But I didn't love it, and I didn't hate it. But really, I just want to hear from you guys. I mean, this episode is really sort of shaking things up by reintroducing Super Saiyan 4 into the franchise, and I'd love to know if it's something that you like, or if it's something that you don't like. Do you really think that this is actually just going to be sort of a remake and reboot of Dragon Ball GT? Could it somehow be connected to that in the future? I mean, how do you feel about Goku's transformation in this episode? Will he be able to utilize it without the power of Neva? Will we ever even see it again? And what kind of fusion is going to end up happening? I mean, really, the obvious answer is that Vegeta's going to get Super Saiyan 4 and they're going to go into Gogeta, but for all we know, Goku can end up fusing with Glorio, transforming into some weird blue Super Saiyan 4 form that we've never seen before, which I think I'd actually be more on board for that, if only for the fact that it looks more unique, but really, the sky's the limit for the last couple episodes of the series, and it could go into so many crazy directions. Point is, let's talk about it in the comments section below. I'm just going to say one final thought. This episode right here was a lot of fun to watch. It wasn't quite what I wanted from the big conclusion of Dragon Ball Daima, and there still could be a surprise coming later on. But I still have to admit that this episode was a lot of fun. It featured a great transformation sequence, an amazing team-up battle with Majin Buu. Gomah is hilariously powerful, and Super Saiyan 4, as ridiculous as it might be, still looks awesome all these years later, especially with the brand new embellishments of red hair, big Popeye arms. It's just crazy. So there it is. Let's talk about this episode. Comment section below. Thank you guys so much for hearing my thoughts about the latest episode of Dragon Ball Daima. I'll see you in the last couple of episodes, and I'll see you next time. And as always, stay dandy, baby.